Mem Vav Amud Aleph, 46. Whoever puts together a lulav on Erev Yontif, it says Shechianu. We, of course, don't paskin that way. We say Shechianu the first time we take the lulav on Sukkot. Not lo lot says bo Omer Baruch Hashem Hashem Mitzvah V'tzvan on the Tilas Lulav. You pick up the lulav to shake it. Before you do that, you say Netilas Lulav, and then say Shechianu. Even though you made a bracha on the lulav on the first day, you make a bracha every day of Sukkot that you take the lulav. How also sukkah latzmo? Somebody makes a sukkah, Erev Yontif. We don't do that. We make the shechianu when we make kiddush, as the maskon of the Gemara is going to show us. Nichlas leishev bo. You go into the sukkah on Sukkot, and when you make the bracha on the first day, you don't have to make a bracha anymore. Kasha lulav alulav. This is a problem on what Rav Yochanan said regarding the lulav that's only one day. Kasha sukkah sukkah, where he said it's 7 days. Bishma lulav alulav kasha kam b'zman shebez hamidrash kayim. There, the mitzvah was all 7 days, and kan is manchein b'smigdash kai. So that's how Rav Yochanan would explain his kasha, sukkah kasha. How do you explain the previous statement where there was a mitzvah shukas for 7 days? Here it says only 1 day. Tanoi, it's machlekes tanoi, the Tanya. Tefillin, kozman shemeinichan mevorach alein divrei Rebbe. According to Rebbe, let's say a person puts on tefillin all day. Let's say he puts it on chakras, takes it off, puts it on in the afternoon. Each time you make another bracha. No, you make it one time in the morning, similar to the case of sukkah. You make it once and it will hold for 7 days. Itmar. Abaye Amar Hilchos Karebi. That the law is like Rabbi, that every time you put on tefillin, you make another bracha. Rav Amar Hilchos Karabonot. Amar of Mary Barad Bar Shmuel Chazin Leila Rava Delavid Kishmaitza. We saw Rava didn't follow his own psak. Elamagdim v'koayla beis hakisei. He would go early to the bathroom. V'nafik u'mashi yodim mana tefillin m'varech. He'd wash his hands, put on tefillin, make a bracha. If he had to go to the bathroom again later on in the day, ayla beis hakisei. V'nafik u'mashi yodim. He takes his tefillin off and washes his hands. U'manach tefillin m'varech. And then he puts on tefillin again, makes another bracha, like Rebbe. Therefore, we paskin the same way as Rebbe, where we make a bracha for the sukkah every day of the sukkahs, and every day of the lulav. But you only make a bracha one time. Every time he would be mashamish the tefillah, he'd make another bracha. And the halacha is like we said. According to Tilas Lulav, Mavarch Shechianu, you don't make the bracha when you prepare the lulav. You did it at the time then you take the lulav for the first day. On the first day when you shake it, and if you didn't make a bracha shachar on the first day, make it the second day or the third day, whenever you remember. And then the Shulchan Aruch says, "Mavarach ala lulav b'chol yom shenotlo." You make a bracha on lulav every day, but only one time a day, even if you shake the lulav many times. The bracha of Shechianu is made for the sukkah, not when you make the sukkah, but at the time of Kiddush. that you make in the sukkah the first time. Back to the Gemara, Rav Yidam Shmuel. Mitzvah lulav kol shiva. There's a bracha every day that you take the lulav. Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Yom Rishon mitzvah lulav. It's only deraisa the first day. Mikan ve'elech mitzvah zakenim, which l'chora would mean doesn't require a bracha. However, Rav Yitzchak Amar kol yoima mitzvah zakenim. Afilu yom rishon. How could Rav Yitzchak say that every day is mitzvah zakenim? We know the Yom Rishon is deraisa. V'kaimel on the Yom Rishon deraisa. So he meant it's mitzvah zakenim bar mi Yom Rishon, except for the first day. Well, then what's the machlokas between Rabbi Shua ben Levi and Rav Yitzchak? Yachi aynad Rabbi Shua ben Levi. So ema v'chein Rav Yitzchak. No, Rav Yitzchak said like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. V'amar Rav Savar kol shiva mitzvah lulav. Even Rav held that there was a mitzvah lulav every day, 7 days. V'amar Rav Chia bar Ashi amar Rav. Hamadlik ner shel Chanukah tzarich levarich. Person who lights the Chanukah candles has to make the bracha. Rabbi Yirmiyah Aroya ner shel Chanukah tzarich levarich. Whoever sees the candles makes the bracha. And what is the bracha? What do they make? Ma'ay mevarach. Armei Yom Rishon, hamadlik mevarach shlosha. The madlik says lahadlik ner she'asa nisim shechianu. Haroya mevarach shnayim. Somebody sees ner Chanukah, he says she'asa nisim and says shechianu on the first day. Ikan ve'elich from the second day on, madlik mevarach shnayim v'roya mevarach achas. The madlik says lahadlik and she'asa nisim doesn't say shechianu. The Roya says Shas Nisi. My Mavarch, Baruch Hashem Hashem Mitzvah Tzalalik Ner Shel Chanukah. The question is, Heichan Sivanu? If Chanukah is a rabbinic mitzvah, where is the Vitzivanu? The more answers, it says Lo Sasur Yaminu Small. Whatever the Chachamim tell you, you shouldn't turn right or left. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omer Sha'al Avicha V'Yageitcha. Ask your zakenim and they'll tell you. And Maimon, what bracha do they remove after the first day's man? Maybe they take away Shas and Nisi. Or says can't be because Nes Kol Yuma is, so there was a Nes every day. So from here we see that you make a bracha even on a mitzvah of Chachamim. So that's the same thing with Lulav. Since it's a mitzvah zakenim, the whole 7 days, you make a bracha for lulav the whole 7 days. Rav Nachman learned it beferish. Amarav kol shiva mitzvahs lulav with a bracha, even though it's mitzvah zakenim. If somebody builds a sukkah, that's when he makes it. We don't paskin that way. He goes to sit in the sukkah. What if he didn't build the sukkah? It was like a ready-made thing that all you have to do is move into it, right? If he can make something new in that place, he can make a mavarich of the shechianu. Now, im lav, if he can't make something new, he shouldn't make a shechianu before sukkahs. Rather, the shechianu and the leishiv. And this is our minig, based on Rav Ashi, that he saw Rav Kahana say all the brachas when they made Kiddush the first night of Sukkot. And that's how we paskin. Shulchan Aruch says, Mevarchin leishiv b'sukkah b'chol yom b'mei chag ha-sukkos. And on Shabbos and on the Yontif, we make the bracha right after Kiddush. That means, even though Rebbe previously said we should make a bracha anytime you walk in the sukkah, the minig is only to do it before you eat. And it's got to be something that has a choiva to eat on the sukkah, like not water. And there are those who make a bracha only if you actually sit a suda, not if you just eat a snack. The Gra, Paskin, like the Rif and the Rambam, that he made another bracha every time he entered the sukkah, whether he ate or not. We don't Paskin that way.
We possibly you have to have a suda, or if you have the piece of cake, we do. You make a bracha.
Yeah, we make a leishev anytime you eat something in the sukkah. There's a chiyuv to eat in the sukkah.
Yeah, right.
Tana Rabbanan, are you the fun of mitzvahs harbe? Person has multiple mitzvahs to do. So the Tana Kama of this brisa says that you make a unique bracha. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvah v'tzivanu ala mitzvos. You make a bracha on many mitzvos. Let's say you have lulav, leisha b'sukkah, you have to put on tefillin, you have to put on tzitzis. You make one bracha. You don't remember bracha kol achas v'achas b'fnei atzmi. You make a unique bracha for each one.
Would that person hold the same thing via food? Without a hamotzi?
No, I think this has to do, Kenny, I think this has to do with birchas ha-mitzvos. Because Rashi says very clearly different mitzvahs. Lulav, sukkah, tefillin, tzitzis. We know in Masechta Brachas there's a whole kadima, right? If you have a fruit of the Sheva Aminim versus an orange, you make a boy praise. And there's also, if you have multiple things, certain food brachas will pater other things. Sometimes it won't.
Right, so with this Tana all that, Yachinami, ala mitzvahs, ala ochel.
No, because I think that's a din in brachas by fruit and by food. Rashi here is bringing us examples of different mitzvos. So, and that's why the language of the Gemara is the bracha is ala mitzvos. Then Rabbi Yehuda will say, no, you don't make a bracha ala mitzvos. First you say leishev, then you make netilas lulav. Now, which one is kadima? We'll have to have a whole discussion about that. That has to do with tadir v'sheno tadir and other dinim. But I'm not necessarily sure that this Tana would hold differently by the case of the fruits. It's something to look into. So, for example, the Rambam here in this sugya says, "Mish nezdanu lo kama mitzvahs yachad." You have a number of mitzvahs to do at one time. Mavorch bracha kol mitzvah l'chud. Ve'eno kol kama brachos ba'achas kediv Rabbi Yehuda. So that's what the Rambam says on this sugya. But we know that if you have multiple foods, sometimes you do have to make multiple brachas. But sometimes a motzi paters everything. Okay. Halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. My time, Rabbi Yehuda, that you need to make a bracha for each individual mitzvah. Dichsiv Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. What do you mean? We only bench Hashem in the daytime, not at night. What is that a limud? Give HaKadosh Baruch Hu the brachos that. Don't zhalva on the brachos and try to pot yourself with one bracha. For each mitzvah, give him the bracha that the bracha deserves. Shel Shabbos Mishain, Shel Shabbos, Shel Chol Hamoed for Chol Hamoed, Shel Yontif, each one gets its own Me'ena Ma'ura. On Rav Zeir Vitem Rav Chanim Bar Papa. Borei Shelo K'midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Midas Bas V'Dam. Kadosh Baruch Hu is not like a human being. Midas Bas V'Dam, Kli Reika and Machzik. Molein Machzik. For human, an empty barrel, you can put things in an empty barrel. It will hold things. If you have a full barrel, you can't put anything in the full barrel. Midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the opposite. Molei Machzik. Something that's full is Machzik more. Meaning, somebody who's molei with Torah, you can give him more Torah. Somebody who doesn't have Torah, you can't give him anything. Right? Reikon ain't a Machzik. Doesn't hold anything. Shenemar vayayim shamoa. Im shamoa, if he has heard Torah, tishma, he'll learn more Torah. V'im lav loy tishma. Right? If he doesn't know Torah, he's not going to learn anything. Davrachem shamoa biyashon, tishma b'chadash. If you heard old stuff, you'll hear new stuff. If you turn your heart against him, you won't hear anything in the future either. Then the Mishnah said that after they finished shaking the lulav, the children would eat their esroigim. Amar Rav Yochanan esrog b'shvi aser. Rav Yochanan says all day of the seventh day, even though maybe in the morning you are already Makai mitzvah lulav, you can't eat the esrog until the eighth day, right? Because then it's not sukkah anymore, mutter. Sukkah filu b'shmini asra. Rav Yochanan says sukkah on shmini is also asra. For example, you can't use the lumber of the sukkah to burn something. Now, why is sukkah different than etrog? Etrog, we say, is mutter on shmini. But sukkah, the lumber of the sukkah is not. You're still asr bano of the sukkah on the 8th day. Reish Lakish Amar, esrog afilu b'shvi nami mutter. He says esrog is mutter even on the 7th, meaning after you use the lulav in the morning, then you can eat the esrog right after. So what's this machlokes Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish b'may kamiflagi? Mar sarvel mitzvasa iskatsoy. It's designated for a mitzvah. Once you completed the mitzvah, it's not designated anymore. It's not muktzah anymore, and therefore you can then use it. That's Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan Mar sarvel kula yom iskatsoy. Once it's been designated to be used on the 7th day, it's for the whole day, and therefore the etrog is asr bano the whole day. So Reish Lakish asks the kashan Rav Yochanan from our Mishnah. Miyad, immediately after they shook the lulav, tinoikos shoymtim esluven, the tinoikos would break down the lulav, oichlen esrogen, and eat the esrog. And we assume my lavu adin l'gdoilim. It's not just ketanim, even adults. Verse is low. Rav Yochanan will answer tinoikos stavka. Not referring to, they're not chayv in a Torah of the mitzvah, but gedolim, according to me, would not be able to use it. Ikidiyami, other people learn this dialogue differently. That it was asked as a kasha from Rav Yochanan to Reish Lakish. Miyara tinoikas shomtis uvev ochlas again, and Rav Yochanan pointed out as medag tinoikas in gedolim lo. So it's against Reish Lakish. So Reish Lakish would answer, hu adin dafilu gedolim. Really, gedolim could use it as well. Why did the Mishnah mention ketanim? Because who plays with esroigim and eats esroigim? It's the ketanim, but really, the halacha refers to adults as well. Amalei Rav Papa Labai, Rav Yochanan, who held that it was lekula yoma iskatsoy. The shaila is maishna sukkah, maishna esrog. Rav Yochanan gave us a din that on the 8th day, the esrog is mutter, but the sukkah remains asr. Why? Amr lei sukkah dechazil ben hashmashos. Let's say the 7th day, the last day of Sukkot. You have guests who show up in ben hashmashos between 7th day and the 8th day. Right? Ben hashmashos is Suffolk Yom, Suffolk Laila, so they come, let's say, between Shkia and Seis, which is Ben Hashmar. You don't know, so you have to bring them into the sukkah. You have to start a meal. And you end up eating in the sukkah, even going into the 8th. So therefore, is katsoy ben hashmashos. So it's been designated for use ben hashmashos. Migud is katsoy ben hashmashos because of the kol yom adishmini. Remember, ben hashmashos is Suffolk Yom Shvi, Suffolk Yom Shmini. Right? Because maybe it's Laila of Yom Shmini. So regarding Sukkah, since because of this din, you might have to have a meal going into the 8th, the 8th is completely designated as well, i.e. the lumber of the Sukkah, therefore I wouldn't be able to use the lumber of the Sukkah on the 8th day either. But Esrog, Esrog is not, you wouldn't do Ben Hashmashos. Migad Asur Ben Hashmashos to Shmini, Mishum de Ben Hashmashos Safek Yomu. Uvashvis katzar lekula yom. If kibbutz ben hashmashos asura, vavagav deloi chazal ben hashmashos asura lekula yom. So Esrog, we don't shake ben hashmashos. Lois katzar ben hashmashos. So it's not designated for ben hashmashos. Lois katzar lekula yom adishmini. If there's nothing to do with the 8th day, so the 8th day you can use it. Yes.
Aren't these Amoraim all in Bavel? And
Yeah.
so why won't they say
No,
it's going to be up to the 8th day as well? You got to sit in the sukkah. You can't.
Rav Yochanan was not in Bavel. Rav Yochanan was in Eretz Yisrael. Rish Lakish too. Rish Lakish eventually moved to Bavel. We're going to see about that. We're not right now. We have not invoked suffix yet. We're talking about when there's no suffix yom yet. We're not talking about chutz la'aretz yet. Meaning, if somebody came to your house in Eretz Yisrael on the 7th day but late, and you started a Suda Ben Hashmashos, so since it's a suffix that it might be part of Shvi, you would continue having a meal there, and therefore it's huktzah Yom Hashmini. But Esrog, there's no havamina that you would do the Esrog during Ben Hashmashos. However, Levi disagrees with Rav Yochanan. Remember, Levi was a Talmud of Rebbe. Rebbe lived in Eretz Yisrael. Levi also. So we're talking about very early Amoraim. And these were the Amoraim that were involved in the Palestinian Talmud, in Talmud Yerushalmi. Rav Yochanan is the main author of Talmud Yerushalmi. But Levi says Esrog afilu b'shmini asur. That the Esrog would be asur as the 8th day as well. Avud Shmuel amar Esrog b'shvi asur. Esrog is asur on Shvi, but b'shmini mutter. Why is that? Kam avud Shmuel b'shitza de Levi. He held like Levi. Kam Rav Zera b'shitza de avud Shmuel. But Rav Zera had like the father of Shmuel. Am Rav Zera. Esrog shenifsala, an Esrog that became puzzle for any reason. Also, you could not eat it on the 7th day because the mitzvah of Esrog is designated until the end of the Yom Tov. Shulchan Aruch says, Esrog osur lahanus b'menu b'yom hashvi shel Sukkos. You can't benefit from the Esrog on the 7th. Uv'shmini atzeres mutter. However, b'chutz la'aretz osur af b'shmini. Shu suffix shvi. Uv'tishi mutter. On simchas Torah it's mutter. V'afilu chal b'yom rishon. And even if that day the shvi falls on Sunday. V'yesh oimrim shev'mekaz osur af b'tshi. That the halach is like Rav Yochanan. The sukkah is also to be matnehena from, and for the noit sukkah, even on Shmini Atzeres, even in Eretz Yisrael. And chutz la'aretz until the 9th. On Simchas Torah it's osur. Yesh oimrim shemhaya osur chag. That if Isru chag of sukkahs falls on Shabbos, noyagim shaloli stapek mi noit sukkah ad lachar Shabbos. I mean, sometimes Simchas Torah is Friday, and Yisro Chag is Shabbos. Some say not to benefit from the Noy Sukkah until Motzei Shabbos. Some are matir, like the Tur. Weiter. This is a known halacha. Person shouldn't hand his lulav on the first day of Sukkot to a child, because you can be makna to the child, but the child can't makna back to you, and then therefore there'll be a lack of lachem. My time, the Yanuka makna, Koni. I can be makna to the child, but he can't be makna to you. He's lava bardas. Vishtaka the kanafik belulav shein shalom. You're going to be yards with a lulav that doesn't belong to you. Amrav Zera. Don't tell a child, I'm going to give you something, and then you don't give it to him. You're teaching him to lie. You're teaching him to lie. But this is a beplukta Rav Yechim Rav Shimon Lakish. Dietmar hifri shiva asroigim l'shiva yamim. Person bought 7 beautiful esrog and wanted to use a different esrog every day. Omer Rav, kolachas vachas yotzeba v'achol alter. Each esrog, the one that he designated for the first day, he can shake it and then eat it right after. Because Rav holds like Reish Lakish, that it's not iskatsoy l'chula yuma, but rather it's katsoy l'mitzvah. Once you finish the mitzvah, it's over. However, Ravasi Omar holds like Rav Yochanan, kolachas vachas yotzeba v'achol l'mocher. Right? It's iskatsoy kol yuma, and therefore it's muktzah a whole day. The next day you could eat it. Right? That it's muktzah up until the time you do the mitzvah. Once you do the mitzvah, it's not muktzah anymore. It's been designated for use the whole day. And therefore you can't use it that day. Now for Kenny, the Anan, the Islan, so now these are the Amoyroim in the Gemara talking. The Anan, the Islan Trey Yoimi, we in Bavel have 2 days. Heichi Avdina. So first we're talking about Heichi Avdina regarding the din of Esrog, whether it's mutter or osir. So Shmini is suffix shvi, so osir. So like Rav Yochanan would hold that since the whole day of shvi it's osir, the whole day Shmini it's osir, because Shmini could be shvi. She suffix Shmini, mutter. But the 9th, which is Shmini, there's no din of Esrog on Shmini. So you'd be allowed to use it on Shmini. But Merema Amar Filu Shmini suffix shvi mutter, that even Shmini would be mutter. But we don't paskin like that, like I read the halacha. But Surah Avdika Merema. Surah they did like Merema that they used it. But Rav Sheshet, Rebbe Yovid Kabai, Vilchas Kabaya, which is we don't use it on Shmini, that's just the esrog. What about sitting in the sukkah? Everybody wants to learn this sugya on Shmini Atzeres. Am Rav Yudah Breit Rav Shmuel Bar Sheretz Mishra Rav Shmini suffix shvi. Shmini Atzeres, which in Chutz La'aretz is suffix shvi, is shvi l'sukkah u'shmini l'bracha. Meaning, we don't know what that means yet, but l'inyan, sukkah, it's like the 7th day, which would mean l'chora you'd have to sit in it. But you have to mention Shmini Atzeres. It's Shmini, and therefore you have to say Shmini Atzeres Hazeh. Rav Yochanan Amar Shmini Lazeh Lazeh. Meaning, it's Shmini, and you don't have to sit in the sukkah, and you have to mention a bracha Shmini Atzeres. Now, Meisiv. Meisiv Kulam Lo Pligid Yasvina. The Gemara says regarding sitting in the sukkah, there's no argument. Everybody sits in the sukkah. B'shmini suffix shvi. Afil Rav Yochanan Domer Shmini Lazeh Lazeh. Every day holds that Shmini Atzeres you sit in the sukkah. Ki pligi levruchi. The machloikas is regarding the bracha. Leman Domer Shvi l'sukkah. The one who said Shmini Atzeres is like shvi bruchinam mevarchinan. You make a bracha. Leman Domer Shmini Lazeh Lazeh. Rav Yochanan who said Shmini Lazeh Lazeh, he held you eat in the sukkah, but bruchi lo mevarchinan. And that's the general halacha. According to the Ashkenaz, the Litvish, the yeshiva world, l'chol day is pretty much sit in the sukkah, but they don't make a bracha. The chassidim who dafka don't sit in the sukkah, or they only make kiddush in the sukkah, they go inside. We'll learn the halacha on that tomorrow in depth. So again, we're back.